Hello, everybody. I hope that you guys are having a good day. I'm a practicing therapist and I work with a lot of individuals with attachment wounds. And today I wanted to go over some things that can help avoidants want to get closer to you and kind of connect with you. But before I do, I wanted to mention a couple things. I work with a lot of couples, individuals, and families. But when I work with couples, a lot of them are long-term relationships. So that's kind of important to recognize. A lot of this may work for short-term, but it's likely it might apply better to long-term situations just because that's my experience. The other thing is I don't ever want you guys to do these things if your partner is not also making differences. I'll also talk about ways the avoidant can also so you guys can bridge the gap, some compromising. But every video that I share, I'm never doing it just to say you guys should just do this and the avoidant sits and does nothing. That's never what I mean. I apologize if it ever came across that way, but that is not what I ever meant, okay? So let's go ahead and go through kind of some of these techniques. And I wanted to mention one more thing before we run into kind of all the details. Is a lot of these techniques will have acknowledgement and reassurance built into it, which means sometimes you might make assumptions. Some of my examples will have some assumptions in there, but they're not necessarily assumptions. They're more like things that your partner has already said prior. It'll make more sense when I show you the examples, but when you know your partner well, sometimes acknowledging things about what they do is very helpful. And so when I write some of these, it's based on those types of things. That probably doesn't make sense right now, but when I give you the examples, it'll make more sense because I'll break it up. And so the first way for an avoidant to get closer to you on both ends is reinforced compromise. And so what does that necessarily mean? It just means communicating in a collaborative way. So here's the example I was kind of talking about, and I'll show you what I mean by the acknowledgement and reassurance kind of built into the examples. So let's go ahead and say this is kind of a way to bridge the gap of compromise. You being the partner, not the avoidant, although you guys can kind of switch it up as well. But let's say an individual will say, I really enjoy spending time together, and I know you do as well. I know we have had some conflict around how often we spend time together. I want to see you more frequently, but I know that's not something you feel is necessary right now. I know this is the way you are, so I don't really want to take it personally. However, I was wondering if we could spend more time, we could have a longer time spent together when we're spending time. So actually, the way I wrote it was a little strange, but I was basically saying, I'm wondering if we could, when we're spending time together, that it can be a little longer. What do you think? Right? And of course, make that a little bit more neater because I kind of just wrote this quickly on my laptop. But basically, the overall point of the communication is basically the avoidant doesn't want to spend as much time in terms of frequency. So you're trying to say, okay, I understand that and I respect that. I also know you want to spend time with me as well. Positive reinforcement, right? That's kind of the reassurance because a lot of avoidants have a wound that they don't feel like they can take care of you and connect in relationships and be there for you. And so when you reassure them like that, they almost feel like, okay, this person does know that I do care about them. Even though I feel like I'm struggling, at least they can see my efforts matter. And so when you say, I really enjoy spending time together and I know you do as well, they feel like, oh, okay, my partner does know. I'll be more willing to compromise. Okay, my partner understands when you mentioned, I know this is the way you are, so I don't want to take it personally. So I'm not going to be overreactive. And yes, you're allowed to react. I'm not saying not to react, but it kind of allows your avoidant partner to feel like, okay, I'm allowed to be myself. And then you say, I was wondering, however, if when we do spend time together, could it be a little longer? What do you think? Right? Very simple. And so the overall goal is that the frequency might be what the avoidant prefers, but then the amount of time spent during the time you hang out. Let's say you guys always hang out Monday, Friday, and Sunday. Let's say that's the schedule that you guys have worked out together. Maybe instead of spending 4 hours together, you're going to spend 6 hours together. Or sometimes you guys spend the night together, right? Whatever it is. And I want to say some avoidants have a very much more lenient than others. I've seen some cases where they can't really see their partner more than once a week. And usually it's only for a couple hours or overnight. That's just something to keep in mind. Every partner is different, so you got to talk with your partner and figure it out. It's also really important to realize that these things are not fixed in stone. You want to start reinforcing compromise originally, but as a relationship moves on, things change, both good and bad, right? And hopefully it's good, but this is not going to be permanent, especially if you're an anxious attached partner. You're afraid that some of these things are more permanent, right? And so you think, okay, if we're not hanging out like every single day or every other day, then this relationship, then my partner doesn't love me. That's not necessarily what it is. And then you may compare to your friends whose partners hang out more often. You're with an avoidant. Like it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with them, right? Remember that you still care about your partner and you want to find some way to compromise. And as the avoidant partner, you do know that your partner does a lot for you. I hope that you do, because they do, right? And you guys struggle with compromising. So it's really important to listen to what your partner is asking. Are they really asking for too much? Probably not. And if they are, please speak up. But if they're just asking for something like, okay, I accept your frequency, but can we spend a little bit longer together? That's not really too bad. Try and be a little more flexible. I know that it's hard because a lot of avoidants are just very rigid with their scheduling. It's not necessarily that they're up to something. I had a couple patients that always mentioned, I just wanted to spend this, time before bed to do whatever I needed to do. Like I wanted to watch TV, or some patients are like, I have this specific time where I do laundry, and that's the reason why they don't hang out that long. That's understandable to some extent, but being a little bit flexible will help your partner to know that you care about them, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. So reinforce compromise. That's really important. And my example was a little bit messy, and I apologize, but hopefully I got my point across. I'm sorry, I had a pretty long day today. The next one is both of you can learn how the other one connects, okay? So what does that mean? One person may prefer compliments, for example, while the other prefers more of acts of service. This doesn't mean the other one way to connect is more stronger than the other. No. It just means that two individuals may express their love differently, but it can be a little bit conflicting because the other person may not understand how the other person shows love. I've mentioned this before in other videos, but a lot of avoidant individuals, when you compliment them, it literally they don't feel anything. They don't feel like you're giving them love. They just feels like something that's, a lot of avoidants have mentioned they feel like it's very unnecessary. And I know that's a strong word, but they have mentioned that. Whereas anxious partners or even fearful avoidant partners, if they're leaning anxious, they prefer compliments, and secure partners like compliments as well. But definitely anxious, preoccupied especially, really likes compliments or reassurance, which is wonderful. That's a good thing. That's healthy, as long as it's not too much, but that's fine. Avoidants prefer more like acts of service. So giving you water, or opening the door for you, or always being the one that stands on the outside when you guys are walking, like on the sidewalk against the road. I've seen that. A lot of avoidants are more protective like that. That is how they show that you care. They care, And so it's really important to meet each other in the middle. So if you're an avoidant partner and your partner is complimenting you, understand that that's how they show love. So if they're complimenting you, it might be really wonderful, and it would make your partner really happy if you compliment them too, right? It's not that they're fishing for a compliment. That's not what it is. That's just how they show appreciation and care. So if they're saying, I care about you, you look nice today, I like your shirt, you as the avoidant partner can say, oh, I appreciate that, I really like how you did your hair today, or you look really good today. That will make your partner feel really good. I promise you that. And for an anxious partner or the partner of the avoidant, understand that their connection style tends to be a little bit less verbal and more so action-oriented, right? Avoidants tend to show love with more action than words. These actions are normally, they're less expressive, but typically very consistent. So it's not like they're going to give you like a huge amount of flowers. They do sometimes in the beginning, by the way, the courting phase. But, if they're apologizing, they're going to give you like this bundle of flowers and chocolates. Really not typical. And that might not be healthy, by the way. Typically what it is they'll just consistently do the same things over and over, which shows love, which means they always show up on time. Or a lot of avoidants answer text messages pretty quickly, especially in like long-term relationships. They might be really like, it might literally just be like, okay. A lot of people hate that, okay. Avoidants really do that a lot, the okay. Or liking the video, like giving it a little, not the video, the message, you'll give it like a little thumbs up. But they do it pretty promptly, basically showing I heard what you said, I'm listening. That's their style of communication. They're showing you, I'm consistent, I'm here, right? I may not have a lot to offer right now and I'm trying my best, but I'm here for you. That's how avoidants show love. So remember, both of you guys can learn how the other one connects. So the first one was reinforce compromise. Both of you guys try to learn to compromise one another and reinforce it with your partner. So while you're compromising, you're expecting your partner to compromise, right? The second one, just like we went over, both of you can learn how the other one connects, right? So a lot of people might say, I think it's what they call like love style or affection style. I'm not sure. I'm not really on board with that one just because it's not really clinical, but that's a really common one too, like how people show their love. So kind of learn from one another how that goes. The next one, and this is more for the partner, right? But I'll also kind of express how the avoidant can kind of connect, because the point is we want the avoidant to get closer, and both individuals have to work on that. So the next one here is logical communication with room for emotions. This is very important. You don't want to have, if you're the partner, you don't want to have a fully detached delivery, because the goal is to heal both sides. And that means helping your partner to be more comfortable expressing emotions, or the expression of emotions in general, right? So that doesn't mean completely withdraw your emotions. In fact, that's very unhealthy. I don't like the match your energy type of thing. And I've told you guys that so many times. That's probably one of my biggest, one of my biggest things that I think is not healthy at all. Because I think everything is pretty flexible. Matching energy, I don't really know. There's probably specific times where that's helpful, but I really don't think it's helpful overall. Sorry if that's a bit of a tangent. But what I'm trying to say is you have to, when you're communicating with your avoidant partner, don't completely be exactly the way they are. That's not healthy. Don't you want them to become more open? Don't you want your partner to heal? Most likely you do. And they don't realize how much healing they need, right? And they can help you to heal as well. So that's why meeting in the middle is important. Logical communication with room for emotion. I really want to do this, or I feel like sometimes when you come back from work, you're in a really bad mood. It really hurts me. I know you don't mean it, but that's something I really don't want you to do anymore. Sometimes it makes me actually feel afraid. And so kind of communicating like that, it's logical, but it's also has emotions in it. It's a lot better than saying, you're always moody. What's going on with you? When you come back home, I'm actually afraid of you. Sometimes I want to lock myself in my room because you're just so moody, right? If you're telling your avoidant partner that, they're going to think, oh, wow, I didn't even realize I'm moody, because a lot of avoidants are moody. And so this is a common scenario, right? And they can get detached as well. But if you communicate in a more criticism-oriented approach, the avoidant partner will likely shut down. Whereas you saying, I noticed that you're stressed out, whatever it is, and you speak about your emotions, but you're also very direct. And if you guys are really close and there's a lot of rapport built, you can even say, to be honest, I sometimes feel like you're not managing your stress properly, and I'm really worried about you. I wish that you could open up a little bit and talk to me about what's going on, because I don't know what's going on, but I can tell that you're stressed, and I'm saying this because I care. That's really important as well. As for the avoidant partner, don't be afraid if you can't be as emotional as your partner right away, right? That's a huge barrier that avoidant individuals have, avoidant partners have, and you guys can definitely let me know. But I'm pretty sure a lot of avoidants feel like that. A lot of my patients say this, right? Where they almost feel like they're really struggling to show emotions. They're almost they're trying to say as much as they can. They're tripping over their words. They're trying to be emotional, but they're failing, and they almost feel awkward. And then they feel bad because their partner, it comes flowing so naturally. So that just makes them feel worse and more guilty. As an avoidant partner, the avoidant, please be open to just showing your emotions and failing, because your partner will be happy. They should, right? Especially if they genuinely care about you, which I hope that they do. They'll be happy just when you show a little bit of emotion, even if it's not perfect right away. And it may never be. And as the partner of the avoidant, don't expect your partner to be 100% emotional as you are. You've had years of practice being able to be emotional and emotionally present. They have not. So please remember that. And avoidance, one way that you can be emotionally present, or just present in general while these conversations and discussions are happening, especially if they're a little bit, maybe they're a little bit more of an argument. It's really important to manage how you're speaking. So don't try and be too harsh or direct. So remember to try and soften up your tone. It really helps a lot. Practice active listening, because a lot of avoidance, when you guys shut down, you stop listening. Try to continue to listen to your partner. I know it hurts, and maybe they're saying things that you don't want to hear and you feel bad because you don't want to hurt your partner, but practice the active listening. Maybe hug your partner, hold their hand, or put your hand on their leg, something like that. Make sure that you acknowledge what has upset your partner or prompted the discussion. And as the partner of the avoidant, try to understand that if you speak logically, just a little more logically, it will probably land a lot better, and you will probably be able to get your point across, just because that's just the way avoidants communicate. Hope that makes sense, but I really think this one's really important, so I really hope that you guys can get that, and I'll make more videos on it, of course, but it's really important. Okay, the fourth one is to create an interdependent relationship. I really appreciate this one, and I think regardless of your attachment style, this one's really important. So I don't know about how much of you guys know what interdependence means, and you guys can Google it. Like, it's not too special, but there's a lot of research on it. But overall, interdependence tends to be the concept in relationships that actually builds the most healthy and fulfilling relationships based on a lot of research. And of course, there are lots of different types of research, but that's definitely something that's pretty foundational in psychology and therapy in general. So basically what it means is you can't be too independent, otherwise it can hurt the relationship. And if you're too dependent, if you're too independent, it hurts, but if you're too dependent, it also hurts the relationship. Interdependence is in the middle, or having a combination of both is a much more lovely way of saying it. And so why don't we kind of talk about how both individuals can create that interdependent space? So, as the partner of the avoidant, engage in more hobbies and understand your partner's specific need for space. This also means continuing on trajectories that you had prior to your partner. So maybe you had career or education goals, fitness goals. Focus on those things while simultaneously connecting with your partner. And we'll talk a little bit about space a little bit later, but it's definitely going to be in this point. But understanding your partner's need for space is very important. But as the avoidant, it's really important to learn to communicate some of the parts of your life that you keep private from your partner. I'm not saying you're hiding anything, but a lot of times you guys don't feel that things are really important to share or communicate. Sometimes you're even embarrassed about it. But this is an example that comes up a lot in my practice. And I think it's very interesting, so I wanted to share it with you guys. Let's just say, for example, you as the avoidant partner, the avoidant, you have a meeting with your boss. And you're not anxious, you're not nervous about it, but it's going to take up a little bit of time. You're probably going to be, let's say, in that meeting for like an hour or two, and you can't really be on your phone. And it's still going to be a little bit heavy, or it's just something different in your day-to-day. Maybe you don't normally have meetings with your boss. Just telling your partner, I have a meeting coming up. You don't even have to say you're nervous about it, but just kind of trying to share, open up a little bit, tell your partner, open up. Your partner's going to feel really good about it because they feel like they're important to you. You open up and tell them. A lot of avoidants share with me that they're a very private person. They don't tell people things. But by doing that, you're not letting your partner in. So the other thing is activities that you do separately. As an avoidant partner, any of those activities that you enjoy doing, sometimes try to invite your partner into these activities so that you guys can do it together. Now, particularly about talking about the need of space, kind of a sub point. A lot of avoidants have a specific need for space, but it's not necessarily the way I feel like a lot of, this is going to sound bad, but like when you Google things about like what avoidants need for space, I don't really see that in my practice. I see it a little differently, and I'm going to explain that. And I'll make a separate video on this particular aspect. But just quickly, space doesn't mean you give them space for like a couple days and then you go right back in the routine. That's not what it is. A lot of videos or articles or something say that, and I just disagree with that, and I could be wrong. What I think is more healthy to build an interdependent relationship is built-in space throughout the relationship, if that makes more sense. Let me illustrate it with an example. And it's kind of similar to what we already talked about earlier, actually. Seeing your partner less throughout the week while still having a longer set time. So let's say hanging out for like the entire day, but you only see each other once a week, but you literally see each other that entire day, morning to night to bed. that allows the closeness. And that's just an example. It depends on each person. I know that might be, too less for some people, and I understand that. I'm not saying to take that as your specific template, just an example. But what happens is the other days have space already built in so that the day that you guys do spend together, it's very deep and connected. And then you go right back to having that space again. But that doesn't mean don't text through those times. I actually recommend couples to text every day. I really do. Regardless of your attachment style, I really recommend that both people get on board with that one way or another. It's very important because it allows individuals to understand one another, how they are day to day. Especially if you guys don't live together, you want to know who you guys are day to day, what your schedules are, what you guys do. It's not invading privacy, it's learning about one another. Because the goal of long-term relationship is so you guys can know one another. And so that's what I meant by creating space. There's space naturally built into the relationship. Let's say after work, you guys know, okay, work is stressful in general. Maybe we'll just text a little bit. Maybe it's very unlikely you guys will have a long phone call, but you'll have a long phone call on the weekends, but just not after work because it's stressful. Text, talk about dinner, whatever, and then leave it at that. And then let's say you guys hang out every day on Saturday. You guys have that, and maybe you have a long call on Sunday. So the space is built in naturally instead of your avoidant is feeling very distant, so now you don't talk to them for like 3 days. I don't think that's healthy because it doesn't teach your partner or you anything, right? We said interdependence. We don't want independence or dependent. We don't want to swing between those two. We want it right in the middle. I hope that makes sense. And yes, I will make a video on that because I already know that this video is a little unclear and I'm sorry. The fifth one is to avoid pressure, right? So we're still talking about how to help your avoidant partner get closer to you. And this is on both sides. Both you guys have to do this, right? So avoid pressure. And as for the avoidant, if you're feeling pressured, you really have to tell your partner instead of shutting down because they have no idea. Because you guys are a little more pressure sensitive. So they're not going to know what pressured you because they just don't feel that way. So you have to communicate. You can't expect them to know that they don't know, okay? So also avoidance, remember to communicate clearly about what you're asking for. And you have to be a little more delicate about it. That doesn't mean beating around the bush, but you can't say it completely directly just because a lot of people, not all avoidants, but sometimes what happens is you may say things a little bit harsh. And I'm just being honest with you. And so people who are not avoidant may not understand. It may come across very abrupt. And that tone in of itself, some people can just take offense to it. It's natural. It's normal. And everybody's different. What you're doing is natural and normal as well. But it's just a way to learn to compromise. Sometimes you got to communicate and say things a little bit differently because maybe your partner just doesn't like harsh words, or maybe you don't like harsh words and you want them to tone it down, whichever direction. But you guys have to learn to communicate very similarly. So back on the topic about avoiding pressure, as the individual who is the avoidance partner, understand that, I don't know, sending multiple articles about like the right time to get married or how to heal your attachment style to your partner is pressure. You might not think it is because you might appreciate if somebody did that to you. But avoidants take that as pressure. They're much less likely to want to heal when they feel that because they're like, oh, you don't like who I am. Like, I'm going to withdraw from you. Unfortunately, sometimes the thought might even be, why would I want to change for you if you don't even like me for who I am? Right? Or like, that's not fair. That's too much. I didn't sign up for that. That's very negative, and I understand that. But it's also important to realize that that's the reality for a lot of avoidant individuals. Whereas if you don't pressure, still bring up what your concerns are, but just don't do it so frequently because that confuses them. It makes them stressed out, and it's very hard for them to regulate all those emotions. And so really just space out when you're bringing things up. You know, I always say, state where you are on certain things. If you want to get married, say that at one point you're hoping that one day you can get married. You can be a little flexible about it if you want to. I understand. However, it's very important that maybe not putting a specific time on it because that can be pressuring for avoidance. And I know a lot of people don't like that, but I'm just being honest with you. Putting a time frame, I want to get married in 5 years, 3 years, that can be really pressuring because in an avoidance mind is saying, okay, I want to be with you. Why does the time matter? Do you not like me for who I am, or you just like me for what I can give you? It sounds strange, but that's how it works. And so it's just something to think about. Of course, you guys can still have a time frame. I'm not saying that, but you might not want to put that on your partner repeatedly. I hope that makes sense. And for the avoidant partner, if you are feeling pressure, it's really important to communicate it properly and tell them directly. I know that you guys, sometimes you're afraid to get yelled at or hurt your partner's feelings, which is, it's a wonderful thing that you guys are caring, but there's a better way to say it than just avoiding it or saying it completely harshly. So here's an example of kind of what I put together. And it's not a one size fits all approach, but I think it's really important, okay? So let's say you're feeling pressured. You can say, I appreciate how patient you are with me. I'm honestly not in a place right now where I want to get married. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy your company. And honestly, you're one of the closest people to me. I really want you in my life, and I hope you can understand it's just that I'm not ready for marriage right now. Now, that might not work for everybody, but it's a lot better than saying, I just don't want to get married. Just stop talking about it. Leave it. I don't want to talk about it. Or this is the way I am. Take it or leave it. That might not be the best. That sounds a little harsh to me. What do you think? That's just my perspective, but I feel like a lot of people may agree. And it's just something to keep in mind, right? I know you don't mean it like that, but that can come across pretty harsh. But if you word it like this, it may help your partner realize, oh, okay, that makes sense. I'm going to back off on pressuring my partner to get married. And like I had mentioned, the partner of the avoidant kind of take the pressure off a little bit. Doesn't mean you can't get those things, and you should if that's what you want, but meet in the middle. Always meet in the middle. And the sixth one is reduce the frequency of arguments and try to move on from the past, okay? And so what do I mean by reduce frequency? I'm not saying you can't bring up how you feel, but a lot of, especially anxious preoccupied, a lot of individuals who are anxiously preoccupied, they stick to negative things a lot. They really hold on to the negativity, and sometimes it's hard for them to see the positivity. Not all the time, but a lot of anxious preoccupied are like this, where they think, my avoidant partner has been pulling away from intimacy, even though maybe you guys have already talked about it and your avoidant partner is working on it, or they're going to take a break from intimacy with you guys until they're ready. And so you're already in the waiting phase, but it's bothering you and it pops up in your brain a lot, which I understand. That's how a lot of you guys are. You're anxious about it, right? But then you keep bringing it up to your partner, and all that's doing is pushing them away. Like I said, this does not mean never bring it up, but just do it more gradually. And as the avoidant partner, it's really important to get more comfortable understanding how other people operate. Some people, they can't just shut things off. It's not healthy to do that, by the way. And so if they're feeling a little bit anxious about it, understand that you're probably putting them in a not so great position. I'm not saying that you have to leave them or they have to leave you or they don't like you, but I am saying you're probably putting them in a position that's hard for them. Even if they weren't anxious, preoccupied, or whatever attachment style your partner is, it's probably not fair to some extent. It's true. It might be perceived that you're being a little unfair. I'm not saying you are, because I know that you're doing a lot as well, but it could be perceived that way. And so it's really important to realize they're probably a little bit more anxious because they're waiting on a lot of things from you. There's a lot of uncertainty. So just try to recognize that and don't get too impatient. Let them have space. Have some moments where you think, okay, you know what? I get it. I get why my partner is anxious. Let me just stop for a moment and really understand and hear my partner. I'm still not ready, but maybe my partner, I can just hear my partner. Maybe I can just hug my partner. Maybe I can just tell my partner, I know it's hard that you're waiting on me. I'm trying my best, and I'm so happy that, you're here for me and you appreciate me. So those are things to kind of keep in mind. Basically how to help your avoidant partner get close to you. So reinforce compromise. So as the partner of the avoidant, you will reinforce compromise, and as the avoidant, you'll also reinforce compromise. So you both can compromise. Both you can learn how the other one connects. That's number 2. Number 3, logical communication with room for emotions. Emotions should be there as well. 5, create an interdependent relationship and have space for interdependence. Okay. And then 5, avoid pressure as well as communicate directly when anyone's feeling pressured. And 6, reduce frequency of arguments while still understanding that no one is perfect. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Go ahead and subscribe, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next one.